Friday the 13th Part 2 was released in 1981. This is directed by Steve Miner, and it's written by Ron Kurz. We have a cast including Amy Steele, John Furey, Adrienne King, Kirsten Baker, and various others. And the legend of Jason continues. And I don't know if I'd ever seen this. I'd seen Friday the 13th Part 1 before. I rewatched it last week, was looking forward to the second film. And it's one of those films where it's fine. It's okay. I wasn't tremendously bored, but I don't really think it had a lot to offer. For the most part, there's no horror in it. It is very, very slow. The beginning was very strong. It got off to a very strong start. And then the bulk of the rest of the film were back at the camp. We're actually at a camp next to the camp. And it's basically about the characters interacting with each other. And there's maybe a tiny bit of suspense here and there. But for most of the film, nothing happens. There is no horror for most of the film. And it's just really, really disappointing. I don't think it's a good experience, unless maybe you're brand new to horror, you want to see how you feel with maybe a little bit of suspense, and there is a bit of horror, certainly, towards the end, not even in the final third, it's a much shorter chunk of time. Eventually, at the very beginning, and then eventually later on in the film, we have some prominent, scary horror elements, but not for the most part. So if you're new to horror, and you want to see how you deal with this kind of thing, it could be a good way to go. If you liked the first film, obviously I'd recommend it to continue with the story, but in general, I don't think it's a good film. I think the story is very, very slow. I kind of feel like they didn't know what to do to get to that final, let's say the final 20 minutes. I didn't time it, but it's not exactly the last third of the film. It's maybe a little bit shorter than that, but eventually it gets somewhere, and I feel like they didn't really know how to get there in a way that was interesting. Yes, we need time to get to know the characters, but the characters are not necessarily boring, but they're not interesting. I just didn't care for them. I wasn't bothered about what happened to them. As I said, there's a teeny tiny bit of suspense throughout the middle of the film, but nothing significant. So it's not a good film. I didn't really like it. I don't think Friday the 13th Part 2 is a good story. Yes, I'm glad we're continuing with the legend of Jason, and that part of it I think was, I guess, reasonably well handled, fascinating enough. I didn't dislike what they decided to do there, but the actual storytelling is just really mundane. The performances are fine, the camera work's fine, music's fine, everything else absolutely fine. The narrative is just very boring. The horror elements, when they happen, are okay. They're not too bad, but it takes such a long time for anything to happen, so I didn't love it. I will be watching the third one. I have no idea what it's about. I haven't looked ahead. I won't look ahead until I sit down and watch it. I didn't realise there were quite so many Friday the 13th films, so I'm curious to see how they manage to stretch this out. I'm hopeful, but we'll see how things play out. And for now, I can say that Friday the 13th Part 2 isn't a particularly good film. The horror aspects are okay when they happen. I'd say check it out if you like the first film and you want to watch the rest, because it just makes sense to watch it. But in general, if you didn't like the first film, you're not that bothered in finding out what happens next with the legend of Jason, I'd say it's probably not worth watching.